Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. Welcome to Connections on Purpose. Whether you're here with us live on Zoom, joining us on the Facebook Live, or watching this later on YouTube, I'm glad you're here. This is a great time to slow down, fill up, and connect with other heart-centered women who are making a difference in the world. And I'm blessed to have one of those women with me today. Vicki Ibaugh is speaking on the secret to sustained success without hustle or burnout. Vicki is a certified business coach and Colby consultant. As the founder of Know You to Grow You Business Coaching, she supports women entrepreneurs in moving their businesses from scattered, splattered, and stuck to aligned, streamlined, and optimized. Time is Vicki's favorite commodity, and she is passionate about helping women ditch busy and hustle to create space and time freedom. You can find out more about Vicki on her website, knowyouToGrowYou.com, and that link is also in the text of this video. Vicki, thanks. Glad you're here with us. I appreciate you being here, and you are on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. And I love this community. It is one of the things I consistently make time for. So if you're watching this and you're not coming to the online meetings or the live meetings in Columbia, I encourage you to get there and to create connections with the amazing women who show up in this space. But if you can't come, keep watching these videos because you still get to be a part of it. So I am a very visual learner. So I am going to share my screen because I need to have slides to help guide some of the imagery that we're going to be using today. So give me one moment here. And so, as Jenny said, I'm going to be speaking about the secret to sustained success without hustle and burnout. And this topic is passionate to my heart because I have spent way too many years in my life doing hustle and burnout, and I don't want to be there anymore. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you don't want to be there anymore either if you've been there. And so, the framework that I want to use to kind of discuss this actually comes from a book that was put out by Colby Corporation. And I am a certified Colby coach, and I've adapted this for my own business. And so if you want to see the original model, it's in a book called Do More, More Naturally by David Colby and Amy Bruschi. And they are the current owners and chief people at Colby Corp. And so they came up with this model to kind of explain sustained success. They call it sustained productivity. I like sustained success better. And so what we're looking at, if you're going back to your like math days where we created charts, is we have a chart and along the bottom we have more naturally. I like to think of that as operating in alignment. And then along the x-axis, the upward axis, we have do more. But I've added of what matters because we don't want to do more for the sake of doing more. We want to do the things that matter. And so what we're going to do is kind of look at the four quadrants of this. What happens when you're doing things out of alignment and they're not really what matter most versus what's going to happen in the other quadrants. So let's start there. Let's start with what happens when you're not really operating in alignment. And when I think of alignment, it's like, this is when you're feeling like most in flow, most like yourself, doing things that just kind of come naturally to you. And so when you're just doing things, but not in a place of alignment, what often happens is this little guy, the hamster wheel, the wheel of busyness. You're really busy. You're doing lots of things, but you're not moving forward, and they may not be things that even feel like you want to do. And so where I experienced this the most in the early stages of my business is I would hire a coach and they were like, here's the list of things I want you to do. And being the good student, I would go do those things. And my business was not growing. I was not going anywhere. I was super busy. Every day was busy. I was exhausted, but I wasn't going anywhere. I was on the hamster wheel of busyness. And then I got to the point where I started to figure out, okay, well, what are the things that really do at least move my business forward? And they do give me some traction towards what mattered most to me. And then I experienced burnout instead because I still wasn't operating in alignment with how I work best. I was doing lots of things that mattered on paper. My business looked successful. It looked great, but I was approaching burnout. And I see this in clients that I work with where they're just like, I'm doing all the things, I'm making my numbers, I'm doing the things. During our discussion, one of the spotlight speakers shared like there was this pressure to like have the numbers to grow things really big. And that for many people, if that's not in alignment with them, it just leads to burnout. They don't feel good about what they're doing, even though on the surface it looks successful. And so I highly recommend this, especially from a health standpoint, because it is affecting you personally, internally, when you reach that stage. So now let's look at the other range here. What happens if you are in full alignment, like you are Zen, and you're really not necessarily doing anything that moves you forward? You may be super happy, but your business might not be growing. And if you are still in business or doing something towards a business, whether you're a writer or whether you have different things going on where you're wanting to create an impact, you kind of have you have unproductive alignment, meaning you're not really moving anything forward. And you know what? When I decide to quit running my business and to just not do anything, like I'm ready for this. I want to be in full alignment and choose to do nothing. But right now in my world, I want to actually have sustained success. I want to have a business that is successful, that is in alignment. And it took me many years to figure this out. But there is a pathway to having sustained success where you feel good. It feels aligned. You're doing the things that matter. These are the times when in your business you feel most in flow and everything's just kind of coming together. All the things are working for you. You wake up looking forward to your day and working with the people you're working with or doing the work that's in front of you to do that day. I have to say that 95% of the time, I feel like this. And it's because I've put into practice really checking in with myself to make sure that I'm operating in alignment and doing what matters most. Now, there are times in all of our businesses, even if you're here, that you will sometimes slip into burnout. You will sometimes slip down to no productivity. On the weekends, this is me. I am not striving on a weekend. I am totally just in alignment and relaxing. And so I'll slip down into this quadrant. But I really, really have learned to avoid spending time over here on the hamster wheel or moving into burnout. And so what I'd like to share with all of you is some tips to kind of know the red flags for when you're slipping into some of these areas, especially into like the hustle burnout areas, and some ideas for how you might be able to check in with yourself to make sure that you're in alignment and doing what matters most. And one last little thing. There's a secret to sometimes we can only get so far on our own. And for those of you who run communities and work with groups of people, this really cool thing happens when you start collaborating with others. And that is being able to elevate your sustained success beyond what you thought was possible. Because I had a mentor who once shared, you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. Meaning you really need somebody outside to kind of reflect back to you what they're seeing and what they're noticing so that you get those ahas and you go, oh yeah, okay. And then you can make those shifts. Often those need to be very trusted people who really are concerned with you operating in alignment and doing what matters most for you and not from their own point of view. But it does allow you to move to a higher level of success when you have those amazing collaborative partners who can support you in the areas that maybe are things you either don't want to do or that you're not able to see, or that just support you in greater alignment. Sometimes working with, mastermind partners or a coach or in a women's circle can really help you to elevate your success. So keep that in mind also, that this isn't the end point. You can still go beyond that by working with people who support you and your goals. So let's talk about alignment first, because I find that alignment is the first thing to kind of get sacrificed sometimes because we just are like, okay, I just have to do this and I'm just going to do it. And so we'll push through and we'll do something that is out of alignment, maybe because an expert told us, like, here's the thing you need to do. I had somebody tell me that the way to fill my monthly mastermind events when I led those was to make phone calls. I rarely will answer my phone unless I know who is calling me and I'm expecting their call. Why would I do that to somebody else? It wasn't in alignment. And so I filled my events through other methods and I never made phone calls because it wasn't in alignment. Doing those phone calls would have felt draining, difficult. I would have avoided them. And it really was going to bring my energy down. And so a few things that are red flags are if something is feeling draining, extra difficult, you're just avoiding it over and over and over again. Or you wake up that day and your energy level is low. Whenever you're in that lower level of energy, sometimes the best thing to do is to rest or to do things that bring you into a sense of alignment. And we'll talk about some of those things in a moment. But working from a low level of energy is often going to make you feel more like you're on the hamster wheel or like you're moving into burnout. If you keep pushing consistently, if you keep pushing through those low levels of energy to work on things in your business, it's just not going to work as well. So let's talk about some things you can do to support your, and you know what? I forgot I put this in here. Let's talk about what misalignment feels like first. So I want to give you a really core, somatic, visceral experience of this. So if you have a pen and paper, I want you to just print your first name. Just print it. It's pretty easy to do that. That's what alignment feels like. It's kind of effortless. You can just do it. Now I want you to take the pen and put it in your other hand, and I want you to print your name. And my guess is your results look a little like this. Because when we are doing stuff that is going against the grain, that's the opposite of how we would normally do it. That's what misalignment feels like. It takes you longer. The result is not as good. You have to focus way more. It takes way more energy to do that. And so why would we want to do that? Why would we want to operate out of alignment for any length of time when taking the time to get into alignment is going to allow us to do it faster, easier, with more flow, with more ease? And so whenever you're questioning, do I feel in alignment or out of alignment? Think of this exercise and go, am I writing with my dominant hand or my non-dominant hand right now? If I'm writing with my dominant hand, I'm in flow. If I'm not, I probably need to pause and question where I might be out of alignment. And so one of the things I always like to bring up when it comes to alignment is to check in with your core values. If you are operating your business outside of your core values, you tend to resist things. So for me, I know that 3 of my core values are knowledge, family, and time. If what I am doing is causing me to lose some substantial amount of time for myself and my family, I'm out of alignment. I need to readjust how I'm doing my business because having time for myself and my family are big priorities for me. And anybody who's worked with me any length of time knows that I have whole days of the week that are not available for anybody to book me on because they are my days that I use for myself or my family. And that I take multiple vacations a year with my family or even by myself. And so just doing that check-in, especially if you're creating like a new offer or something new for your business, and go, does this align with my values? Does this align with how I want to live my life and how I want to show up in this season of my life? Because we all go through different seasons of life. I had a client who needed to back way down on her business and her commitments because she was a caregiver during that time. And her value was being that caregiver. And so just checking in with those things can help to support your alignment. The other pieces, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, is to really know your strengths and your natural work style. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. It's also about what is your energy. One of my mentors, she had a saying, and it was feel good first, then take action. And so if she woke up feeling kind of funky, like she woke up on the wrong side of the bed, she had certain things she would do to bring her energy level up, and not to deny her feelings, and not to deny like when she's mad about something or sad about something, but to also recognize that in certain energies, taking action is somewhat counterproductive sometimes. And so she would, work through, okay, what am I feeling? Am I feeling angry? Okay, what do I need to do in order to work through this and to get to a level of hope or joy or to move up the emotional scale in order to take action that day? And so checking in with your energy, and I'm going to talk about that in a second too. So when it comes to how you naturally take action, there's 3 parts of the mind. There's the thinking part, the feeling part, and the doing part. So I'm focused here on the doing part, how you naturally take action, how you naturally problem solve. And so all of us fall on you fall on all 4 of these spectrums, but you fall in different areas of each one of these spectrums. And that makes up your doing style. So the first one is fact finder, how you gather and share information. Have you ever noticed some people are like really into all the details, like they need all the details. They have a lot of questions. They seem very curious and they have to know like almost down to minutia. And then there are other people who they naturally simplify. They're just like 1, 2, 3, this is all we need to know. And you fall somewhere on the spectrum. And if your work does not match where you naturally fall, you will be out of alignment. And so I've had clients who naturally simplify and they're trying to do their work in the way that somebody who naturally is detail oriented and specify does their work. And they're miserable. It stresses them out. Well, because they're operating outside of alignment of how they naturally gather information. The other area is how you organize. So follow through deals with organization and how you design your plans. Some people are very, very systemized, like really, really structured. And other people, they don't really want a plan. They just want to go with the flow and they want to adapt. And when I think about follow through, I always think about the person who is in the operating room. I need them. If they're a nurse in an operating room, I want them to be systemized. I want them to have a plan for my surgery and all the equipment they need and how we're doing things. If you work in the emergency department, you need to be adaptable because you are probably juggling 20 patients at the same time and you're going to need to move from person to person and just go with the flow. And we all fall somewhere on this spectrum of how much we want to organize. And you may fall more in the middle or you may fall on one of the ends. I have a husband who systemizes, I have a son who adapts, and I fall in the middle. So I know this equation really well. And we all have different needs in how we operate within our work. Now, quick start is how you deal with risk and uncertainty. And some people naturally like a lot of change. They like to just change things sometimes for the sake of changing them, just because they want to do it differently. And then there are other people who maintain the status quo. They kind of like things to stay the same and to not have too much variety. And so we fall somewhere on that spectrum. And again, if your work is demanding that you constantly are changing things, but you naturally, the way you're wired is to stabilize, you're going to feel out of alignment. And then the last is how you use tools, basically. Implementor is with an OR because it's about handling implements, handling tools. Some people are really good at building things, and some of us are just really good at envisioning things and knowing what we want to have built. But we do not want to be the one picking up the tools and doing it. And so you have numbers that fall in each one of these categories. So the way that ends up looking is you end up with what's called a mode of operation. And that tells you what your strengths are. And it also tells you the order you do things in. Now, do you need to know this today? No. Would I recommend you figure this out at some point if you seem to be struggling with the type of work you're doing? Absolutely. I've had clients that after they take this assessment, they're like, oh my gosh, like this is why this annoys me so much. This is why this feels so hard. This is why it feels out of alignment. And we make adjustments to their business model so that they have more flow, more sustained success. This was true for me. I was operating a business that didn't really honor that I naturally like to innovate things. And I was working for a company that didn't allow me to innovate at all. And I was miserable and my soul felt dead when I was working there. And until I left and really realized the importance of me being able to innovate and the importance of brainstorming in my process, I really didn't find sustained success. So this, I think, can be a really powerful tool. This book gives you some really good tips, the Do More and More Naturally, on how to kind of gauge where you think you fall. But even from our discussion today, you probably have started to go, oh yeah, I'm probably more like that or more like this. So this is one of the tools that can help you with alignment if you feel really out of alignment with your work on a consistent basis. The other thing I want to bring up is the importance of self-care, the importance of taking care of your own energy as a core piece of your business. When you show up to your business and you're tired, you're emotionally drained, you're just not feeling good, the simplest tasks that you can normally do well are going to feel like a struggle. You're going to feel out of alignment with those tasks. And so taking the time to show up in your best energy often involves taking time for some self-care, and not just, this isn't just massages and bubble baths. It's the mental self-care, it's the social, it's making sure that you have connections with people. I know in our groups, several people said community was really important to them and connection was really important to them. That's part of your self-care, whether it's meditating or some other spiritual practice. I have made it a point in my own business. I don't start working with clients till 10 o'clock in the morning, because that whole morning time is devoted to me and my self-care and getting my energy to a point where I am showing up as my best self for me, for my business, for my clients, because then I'm in flow. I'm in sustained success. Everything, even if it's something that's going to be challenging, feels easier because I'm coming with a full cup. And I'm not just serving from that full cup. They say you can't pour from an empty cup. I like to serve from the overflow of my cup. I don't even drain my cup. I'm so focused on how can I be overflowing and serve from that instead. And so this is just a reminder that like self-care is a business strategy. And so this is a lesson I learned from one of my coaches years ago, where she built into when we were kind of scheduling how we wanted to use our time, she's like, and where are you putting in these practices that support you? And so she was the first person that really encouraged self-care as a business strategy. And that was the first coach I ever had say that, because a lot of the messages we get out there is just hustle, hustle, grind, grind. Like you can rest when you're done. No, what if we rested first and then came in energized? So those are some of the alignment pieces that can support you. So let's talk about the doing pieces and the red flags that come in with doing. If you're kind of evaluating your week or your month or even your year, and you're like, I'm not really moving any of these goals forward. I feel busy, but I don't feel like I'm really productive. I'm exhausted and stressed. And you know what? I just want to quit. The last job I ever had, every day I would dream of, when can I quit my job? Because the work I was doing wasn't really all that important anymore. It was just rinse and repeat. I didn't feel like I made a difference. That's the other thing. If you feel like, okay, I'm doing this, but is it really making any difference? And you're not feeling like you are, that might be a red flag that you're not necessarily focused on the things that matter most to you. And again, what matters to me and what matters to somebody else can be very different. And so it's unique to you. And so some ways to really support this and to think about it is, one, to know what your top goals are. And I'm not saying I like to think of goals as being things that are, hey, I want to do this because it contributes to my good, the good of the people I serve. It's, this isn't just always like a revenue number or something like that. But when you kind of know what your goals are in your business, then you also know what actions to take to support those goals and the things that matter most. When I was on the hamster wheel, I didn't really know what those actions were supposed to be contributing to. I was just like, hey, somebody said I need to do this, so I'm going to do this. But I really wasn't connecting the dots of, oh, I'm trying to do this. Well, what things could I do that are aligned for me that would move me towards that goal? And so getting clarity on that can be really supportive. The other thing and my clients know I encourage this, is to track progress. And so last month or earlier this month, we worked on looking at, what are the goals and how do we want to track that progress? Because what that lets you do is then to course correct very quickly. So if there was a goal of, let's just say it's a revenue goal, because that's easy. I know for me, the easiest way for me to grow my business is through networking, through speaking. It's through getting to meet people and creating connections and building relationships. I have a friend who she has completely built her business because she has mastered Instagram. Her whole business has been built from her Instagram stories. And if she goes silent on her Instagram stories, her business, goals drop. And so she can track her progress based on, hey, if I show up there every day, then I can see these goals growing. And so for each one of us, what our goals are and how we want to track that might be different. So I have clients who, one of their ways of tracking is, okay, how many women did I support this month? And so they track that because that's a meaningful goal to them. They're like, you know what? I want to help this many people move forward with their goals. One of the people we have here does work with women recovering from heart things. It could be, okay, how many women have I helped make progress towards their health goals after this health scare? So there's a lot of ways that you can track that meaningful progress on a goal. The other thing is knowing your business stage and focus on the actions that match your stage. So when I first started in business, what I was finding was a lot of women were being told, oh, you should get Infusionsoft and it can manage all these things for you. But they were in the early stages of their business, and that was not a tool that they really needed. And so they were being guided to things that were for people at a scalar stage. So let's talk just quickly about the stages of business. This is adapted from the work of Christine Kane, who was one of my mentors years ago. And I've expanded upon this from the work that she did. And so when we look at stages of business, we all start like in the dreamer stage of, I have an idea, I have a concept. I don't have any clients yet, but I have an idea. And then we move into starter. We start our business, we start getting clients, and then we move into the doer stage because like, okay, we kind of got this down, we're doing things. And then I added this stage of experienced doer because a lot of us don't want to move to scalar. And here's the thing about these stages. You get to choose the stage you want to be in and stay in. And you can even choose to go backwards if you want to. And so one of the tools that I use with my clients is to kind of help them see like, okay, what do these different stages look like? Like what's going on in a business at these different stages? And so I actually have a link so you can download this particular tool as well as some other ones that just help you to get a snapshot of the stage of your business. Because here's the thing. If you are working on things because somebody has said, oh, you should scale your business and these are the things you need to do, but you don't want to scale your business, you are like, hey, you know what? I want to hang out here in the doer zone. Like this is where I want to hang out. This is the stage of life I'm in. This is what I want to be doing. Why would you be trying to pursue things that are for somebody who's in a different stage? It's a waste of your time. And honestly, focusing on these shiny objects over here is going to keep you from doing the work that would be most meaningful, that would move you forward and allow you to have sustained success. Moving into these zones when you don't want to be there, that's where the hustle and the burnout come from, is trying to do things that are not meant for you. Our group, my client group this morning, we talked about how there's certain emails we just delete now because we're like, does not apply to me, does not apply to me. So this is one of the snapshot tools that I use. And what it does is it kind of gives you almost a roadmap of for that stage, what would be some of the things that would be important to potentially work on that would support you at that stage of business. So these are kind of milestones to meet that support you at that stage of business. And the beauty of this tool is it allows you to see where there are gaps and something you may want to work on so that you're doing something meaningful for that stage of business. And I have one for all the different stages. So you can see as you go up in the stages, there's more milestones to meet. And so like if we were just to compare, like the marketing and the sales systems of these two different stages. Why, if I am in starter, would I be worrying about like having a master, a customer relationship management tool that's tracking every lead? I don't need that yet. I could simply use a notebook at that point. And so realizing that many of the things we're told to do are creating hustle and burnout because they're not meant for the stage of business we're in. And so I pulled all of these together, and you can actually get copies of them so that you can use them yourself and kind of go, oh, what stage am I in? What things might support me in working on things that are meaningful, especially here at the beginning of the year, where maybe you're trying to think of like, what would support me in my marketing or my sales or in my systems. And so, and I will drop this into the chat for the folks that are here live, and I'll go back to the recording and add this link after the recording goes up also. And so this is just another way to consider, how can I move myself into this period, this space of sustained success, by checking in with myself on, first and foremost, is this aligned? And then, is this something that really moves me forward? Or is this something that's just going to keep me stuck spinning my wheels in busy land? Or if it's not in alignment, is this going to cause me to burn out? And while we may go into these other zones periodically, if we stay there, that, especially over here on this left side here, that's when we get into overwhelm, burnout, really not moving things forward and questioning, why am I even doing this? Does it matter? Or even if it matters, do I have enough energy to sustain this? So I am going to just leave us right here. Know that those tools are available to you. And if you have questions about any of this, I am happy to hop on a call and answer your questions and support you in better understanding this, because until I got this, I really was struggling in my business. And this has taken me years to kind of finally get and to quit living in this zone over here of the bounce between busy and burnout. So thank you so much, Jenny and OPW, for having me. It's always a joy to get to come here and speak.
Thank you, Vicki. And I would like to ask the women here with us on Zoom to unmute yourselves, and let's give some applause. Let's throw some applause Vicki's way to thank her for this excellent, excellent, excellent information, Vicki. Yeah, really good stuff. Thank you. I love your approach. I love your approach is so 21st century, right? It's so we're still, a lot of us are still, well, a lot of people are out there still living in the 2000s, on how they do business. So I want to thank anyone who's watching this, either right now, like right here on Facebook, or later on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. And if you want more information about the On Purpose Woman Global Community and magazine, you can go to my website, opwgc.com, and find out all about that. If you're a woman, you're welcome to join us at any of our online gatherings. We also meet in Columbia, Maryland once a month. Vicki's information is also in the text of this video. So until next time, I'd like you to think about this. How can you stay inspired? How can you stay connected? And how can you stay grounded in your purpose? Thanks for watching.